Hey guys, welcome back or welcome to my channel if you're new here. Today's video is just going to be me talking about my favorite books, books I love, books I will always recommend, books that you can think of when you think of me, just that sort of gist because I am new to YouTube, so I feel like I haven't shared a video like this and told you guys what my all-time favorite books are, my 5-star books, my 6-star books. So this video is definitely needed so you guys can see my tastes, what I like, what I don't like, just get a feel for the type of reader that I am. I'm also going to try to go through like all the different genres I read, the different types of books I read so you guys can see just, you know, who I am as a reader, like I said. So the vibe of this video is going to be very chit-chatty, casual. I'm just gonna go through my favorite books, like I said, and tell you guys why I love them. Okay, so first up for some of my favorite books of all time, we have The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I love both of these books with my entire heart. Taylor Jenkins Reid is one of my go-to authors. I love most of what she writes. I've actually only read these 2 books and then another book, Malibu Rising by her. Malibu Rising was a 4-star, but these are both like 5-star books or beyond for me. I read this one first, 7 Husbands, and I feel like it is definitely one of the few books that got me back into reading over the past several years. It is the story of Evelyn Hugo, her life, her loves. She is a Hollywood starlet, and the book pretty much follows a magazine reporter, Monique, interviewing Evelyn Hugo on her life because she has never told her story before. So her story is finally being told. This book shocked me with how much I loved it. It made me cry, it made me smile. It just was so good. I think it's so readable and bingeable and just sucks you right in with a fascinating story. I credit that to TJR's writing. I love her writing. There's something about it that just, honestly, that's all I can say about it. Like, I just love her writing. I love her books. I love her stories. This is also one of her books in that like famous women in history type of like genre that she writes. She has this, and then she has Daisy Jones, she has Carrie Soto, she has Malibu Rising, and they all follow these like historical fictional women with these like glamorous lives. I just couldn't recommend this book enough. If you haven't read this book, like, what are you doing? This was definitely my favorite book for a long time. It still might be, but that is just a question that I kind of currently don't know the answer to. I have a lot of favorite books and I kind of can't pick one, but this was my solid answer for probably 2 years. And then Daisy Jones and the Six is a newer read for me. This was the last book I read in 2023. I had it on my shelf for so long and I put it off for so long for some reason. I think it's because some people actually don't like this book and I was kind of scared that that's how I was gonna feel, but I loved it. It was one of my favorite books of the year by far. Of course, it's one of my favorite books of all time. And this book follows a fictional band in like the late 60s, 70s. And the story is told in interview style. So you get like little paragraphs from each person in the band and just people that surround the band. And I think that this way it's written just moves the story along so fast. It is so interesting, so fascinating. I loved how you got so many different perspectives on each event. This book also, from the beginning, you can tell that the band fell apart. So you are reading it like so fast and you want to know so badly what happened to the band, how they went from what they were to what they became. And it's just a fascinating story with amazing characters, an amazing story, just like it had all of it, good plot. And there was also the TV series for this book. I watched it as soon as I read the book and it just made me love the book even more. This is one of my favorite stories of all time, just like including the book and the show, and I just loved it. It was heartbreaking, it was beautiful, such a great story. So if you guys haven't read these 2 books, you really should, especially if you think you like books similar to me. Also, if you have read these books and then you've read more of Taylor Jenkins Reid's books, let me know which one I should read next because, like I said, I love her writing, but I still have kind of a lot to go when it comes to her like backlog and all the books she's ever written. So let me know where to go next. Next up, we have probably my favorite books of my favorite books, and that is the Boys of Tommen series. So I actually don't think I've ever talked about my love for these books on my YouTube channel yet. If you follow me on TikTok, you know that I've talked a lot about these books. I read them early this fall and they truly changed my life. They definitely changed my reading life, but they also like changed my beyond reading life. Whenever I talk about my love for these books, like I can't even put it into words. As soon as I read this first book, Binding 13, I literally was 100 pages in, not even, and I knew I was going to be obsessed with these stories. And I finished this first book. It's like 800 pages in probably 2 days. This story and just all of the books in general are the most bingeable, readable, suck you right in stories. Like, I am not kidding. I don't feel like I'm reading when I'm in this world. My eyes don't leave the page. Time goes away from me. It's like I truly open these books and don't close them until I'm finished. And I've said it before, but it's like, not that I love these books. Of course, I like the books, but I just love the stories in here. Like, they are my favorite stories of all time, and that covers any story you've ever heard. Movies, TV shows, books, like any story, these are my favorite of all time. And if you don't know what these books are about, they follow a bunch of teenagers in Ireland at a rugby prep school. And in this book, it is a love story between Johnny and Shannon. Johnny is the star of the rugby team. He is going to go pro. He's this big hotshot in the high school. And Shannon goes to the high school because she was bullied in her previous school. So she is kind of like the new kid, and she doesn't exactly fit in. Like, she isn't there because she can afford it and is like of an upper level, like a lot of the kids that go to this prep school. She goes there because she needs to, and she is from a way different background from Johnny. She comes from a very broken home, a very abusive home, which kind of brings me to another point about these books. They deal with very dark, heavy, traumatic topics and themes, and I think that is one of the things that makes me love these books. But if you are sensitive to anything like that, I would check the trigger warnings, because there are lots of instances of domestic abuse, of bullying, of assault, like just very violent things in these books. But like I said, I think that's what makes me love them, because my heart just breaks for Shannon because of what she's gone through. And then Shannon and Johnny just have the most touching love of all time. Like, they are my favorite couple of all time. I don't know what it is about it. It's just like such a pure, innocent, true love, and it was precious. So you have these first 2 books that follow Johnny and Shannon, Binding 13 and Keeping 13, and then the next 2 books are Saving 6 and Redeeming 6, and these follow Shannon's brother Joey and his love interest Aoife. And the story between these 2 is maybe even more tragic than Johnny and Shannon. It is so dark. They go through so many things, but you are really there for so much of their love story. And same with Johnny and Shannon. Like, these stories will definitely be kind of boring and drawn out if you don't connect and love them and love the stories and the characters as much as I do. But if you do connect and love the characters and the stories as much as I do, like, there will never be enough. All 4 of these romances, like, are by far the best romances I have ever read. They do it all. They break my heart. They put it back together. They give me butterflies. They make me feel giddy. They do all the things. There also is wonderful found family in here, and it's kind of like all the connected stories of all the different friends in the friend group. The next book is coming out very soon. I cannot wait to dive back into the world. The only way I can really sum up how I feel about these books is, like, it's different than any other book I've ever read, and that's why I rated them 6 stars, because truly, like, it's just a different level. It's like every other book is here and these are here. Like, I'm just obsessed. And I just love them so much. And you can go to my TikTok if you want to hear me rant more about these books, because I do that over there. Oh, also, like, one last thing, if you're on the fence about reading these books, thinking, would you like them, would you not? First, you would have to be able to like reading or hearing stories about high schoolers. I personally don't mind that. I enjoy it. I like watching all those like high school drama TV shows like Gossip Girl, One Tree Hill, 90210, The OC, like all of those. I really love those, and these kind of give that feeling. You're just kind of watching like the drama and the love stories and the friendships and the home lives and the family of a bunch of high schoolers, and I love it. They are YA, but to be honest, they don't seem like they should be classified as YA to me. Like, I definitely don't think I would want my young teenager reading these books. I definitely think you should read these books. I really, really do. Okay, for my next group of favorite books, we're moving on to fantasy. And my absolute favorite fantasy books, it might be a little bit basic, but it's just the truth. And those are Fourth Wing and Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. If you are anywhere in the reading world, you know these books, you've probably read them. Everyone loved Fourth Wing, and then Iron Flame was a bit controversial. A lot of people hated on it. I happen to love both. They are both 5-star reads for me. I love them so much. I am not the hugest fantasy reader, although it is one of the genres I read. I've read ACOTAR, I've read the Cruel Prince trilogy, I've read Divine Rivals, Ruthless Vows, and then just some other ones mixed in there. And I would definitely say I loved these books more than ACOTAR, and I'm not sure if it's mainly because I read these first and then I went to ACOTAR and I was looking for more of what these gave me, and like they didn't. Whereas a lot of people read ACOTAR first and then they read these, and like these don't compare. So I don't know why, but these are definitely rated higher in my book. If you live under a rock and you don't know what Fourth Wing is about, it is about our main character Violet, who goes to this elite war college to become a dragon rider. So this book has a lot of dragons, it has action, it has like war college vibes, of course. So it's kind of like Harry Potter meets Divergent. There's all these different areas that you could be, like kind of like how in Divergent there's the different factions. In this book, you could be a scribe, you can be a dragon rider, you can be an infantry soldier, I believe, or you could be like a medic or a healer of sorts. And you go to this college and you study for whichever one it is. The dragon riding school is the most dangerous, it is the most cutthroat. Like hundreds of kids die each year when they try to make it through the school. There's also elements of romance in this. It's definitely like a romantasy, and it was just so good. It was so fun, probably the most fun I've had reading a book in a long time. It brought me right back to my childhood with Hunger Games, Divergent, Harry Potter, and all I can really say is that it was so much fun. And I loved this book. I rated it 5 stars, but I actually think when I read it, I was kind of like, it's a bit overhyped. Not like actually overhyped, like I think it deserved the hype, but I wasn't like so obsessed. My true obsession actually happened in Iron Flame, which is where a lot of people didn't become obsessed. Like they lost their obsession. They loved Fourth Wing and then Iron Flame made them like not love the series, whereas I had the opposite experience. I loved this, but then I loved this one even more, and it made me be like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This book was so full of politics and strategy and war planning and geography, and like I was constantly going back to this map and like seeing where everything was happening, which I thought was so fun. It definitely leans on the side of high fantasy and goes away from the romantasy. I know a lot of people were disappointed in this book because there wasn't enough romance, and I think like all of that world building just like kind of people disliked, but I think I've learned through this that I like world building. I like learning about all these characters. I think a lot of people who disliked this book, they just thought it was too much. They wanted more of the Violet Xaden love story, and that's just not how I felt. I enjoyed this book immensely. I gave this book 6 stars. Like, I don't know if it's gonna hold the test of time of being a 6-star, but at that moment, I gave it a 6-star. I was floored. I was so entertained. Reading this book literally felt like I was watching a movie on the big screen, and I've never felt that way about a book. So clearly I loved it. And I feel like this gives you a little bit of an insight on my taste when it comes to fantasy. So I liked these better than ACOTAR. I liked ACOTAR, don't get me wrong, like a lot of the books in there were a 5-star, but some of them were not at all. I thought it was too long, very drawn out, like especially like the last book, A Court of Silver Flames and A Court of Wings and Ruin. Those two were so long and they bored me. And I know people say that about these books, but this didn't bore me at all. So this is where I need your help. Let me know where I should go next when it comes to fantasy, because like, I just don't know where to go next. Should I read, what is it called? Should I read Throne of Glass? I feel like that is where everyone goes next. But I read ACOTAR, like I said, and I just don't know if I'm a big SJM fan. I don't know if I want to go into all of those Throne of Glass books. Let me know what you think. If I liked ACOTAR, really liked it, but I'm not obsessed, would I like Throne of Glass? Or if not, what are some other series that I could get into? Because I would really love to start a fantasy series that I love. Okay, so these next books will kind of give you a look at what I enjoy when it comes to romance. So some of my favorite books are Ali Hazelwood's books, and you may notice that these do not include one of them, and that is Love Hypothesis, because this book is not one of my favorites. I disliked this book. I did not like this book at all. So I'm not including it as my favorite book because it's just really not true. Although I may have to give this another shot at some point because now I love Ali Hazelwood. I read this a long time before the other 4 and I didn't like it, but maybe if I read it now, I would like it. Who knows? Maybe I'll go back to it one day, but for now, definitely not a favorite. But the rest of them are. I love Ali Hazelwood books. She has become one of my favorite romance authors. A problem I have with romance books a lot is that I get really bored. And I think the way Ali Hazelwood writes with her like quirky, unique, funny writing, it like makes it entertaining enough for me to not get bored in romance books, because if it's just pure romance, I do get bored. She also includes like interesting plots besides just the characters falling in love, so that also helps. So my very favorite book of hers is Bride. This is a paranormal romance between a vampire and a werewolf, and it is an arranged romance. And this was just like a perfect guilty pleasure 5-star read for me. I love like arranged romance. I love mafia books. This gives me mafia vibes. And I think I just like kind of like a taboo romance, and this definitely gives that energy. It was sexy. It made me feel giddy while reading it, like butterflies. Loved it so much. Then my second favorite book is actually Check and Mate by her. This is a YA romance between chess rivals, and it was just so good, so fun, fast. And my favorite thing about this was the romance was given in like little hints, but each hint and crumb was like so delicious. It was so good. It made me want more and more and more. And like the man was just so spoon worthy, and it made me realize that I do kind of like when the romance isn't like so out there, so front and center. Like this made me realize that I like a little bit of build up. I like a little bit of slow. I like a little bit like waiting for crumbs. So highly recommend this one. And then we have two of her classic like STEM romances. This is between two physicists, and this is between an engineer and a neuroscientist, I believe. Both of these are phenomenal. Great rom-coms. Loved them both. And if you want more of my in-depth thoughts on Ali Hazelwood, I actually have an Ali Hazelwood reading vlog on my channel. So I go through my rankings of all the books there, as well as my thoughts while I read Love in the Brain and Check and Mate. So if you're an Ali Hazelwood fan, go check out that video. I also love historical fiction books, and my favorite author for that is Kristen Hanna by a long shot. My favorite book of hers and one of my favorite books of all time is The Nightingale. I love Winter Garden by her too, and I've also read The Great Alone, but I don't have a physical copy of it. This book and Great Alone were 5 stars. This is a 4.5 star. But nonetheless, I love her books, especially The Nightingale. So this book takes place in World War II in Nazi-occupied France, and it follows two sisters' lives throughout the war. And the two sisters lead very different lives. One of them is way more involved in the actual war effort. She kind of gets like down and dirty with it, like in the nitty-gritty of it, where the other woman stays at home, but she still like fights for the war effort in her own way. And it's just an interesting look at how women were affected by the war and how they fought for the war and like what they did during the war. You know, usually it's all about the men going off to war, but there's also the women at home and who were doing their own different things. And it was just so fascinating. I feel like she writes a lot about women. Like most of the stories I've read are about strong women throughout history. And she writes really good historical fiction. I have read historical fiction that is either like very historical, very factual, very like almost biography. Like it doesn't have a lot of plot. It doesn't read like a fictional story. And then I have read books that I think read too much like a fictional story. Like there's not enough history. There's not enough fact. There's not enough reality. And I think Kristen Hanna does the perfect balance of both. If you're looking to dip your toes in historical fiction, I would definitely start with The Nightingale. It is such a fascinating, interesting story. I think it's so bingeable, which like bingeable and historical fiction usually don't go hand in hand, but it really is. And then another thing I love about her books is that they make me sob like no other. Like, I don't know what she does, but Kristen Hanna can just like weave an emotional depth and make me connect to the characters in the story in like a way like no author can, because I've read other historical fictions that take place in World War II. They involve the same tragedies and horrific events, and I just don't cry. Like it just doesn't, it's sad, but it doesn't like hit me in the feels like these books do. So yeah, I love these books. And whenever I'm looking for like a good emotional, make you cry, stick with you forever, powerful read, I'm picking up one of these. Another type of book I love are thrillers. Anything mystery, thriller, suspense, I love them, and they are some of my favorite books to read because they just suck me in. They make me not want to put the book down. They transport me to a whole nother world. Like they are so fast, so addictive. You know the feeling. And these are 3 of my favorite thrillers of all time. First, we have Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter, and I actually finished this book this morning, and I thought, why not include it? I gave it 5 stars and I loved it. I thought it was phenomenal. This is definitely a very disturbing thriller. If you are squeamish or you don't like anything graphic, you don't like anything too dark, definitely stay away from this. This is one of the most like descriptive, graphic, disturbing thrillers I've ever read. And I've heard people say that before, but I was like, in what way? Like, what do you mean? And I'm not gonna give anything away because, you know, thrillers, you don't wanna see what's coming, but it kind of just gives like Criminal Minds, Psychopath, like disgusting. And I don't know what it says about me that I loved it, but I ate it up. It was so stinking good. It also made me cry. Like, I don't know why, but I emotionally connected to the characters in here and the story, which doesn't usually happen to me in thrillers. And I can appreciate that this was such a well-written, good story that it made me do so. So this is definitely like an all-time favorite, even though I just finished it today. Then we have Strange Sally Diamond. This is probably one of the most unique thrillers I've ever read. I can't even describe to you what happens, so I'm just not going to. I will say that when I closed this book, I was literally like staring at the wall and I was like, wow, how did the author come up with this? It's one of those ones where you're like, how does that author have that brain? And if you haven't seen this one, I highly recommend picking it up. I feel like it's not talked about too much. So this is your recommendation to pick it up. And then last but not least is The Only One Left by Riley Sager. This is like a dark, twisty, moody thriller, perfect for like around Halloween time. It's very gothic. And this one I can actually give you a description of because it won't give everything away. But pretty much this follows a caretaker, Kit, who is assigned to take care of Lenora Hope, who is an elderly woman that lives on top of this cliff in her giant mansion. And she was accused of murdering her entire family like 50 years ago, her parents and her sister. And now she's kind of like this legend in the town. She's this like creepy character that everyone sings like nursery rhymes about, and Kit goes to the house to take care of her, and pretty much she unravels the truth about what really happened that day 50 years ago. The twistiest thriller I have ever read, so if you like a good shocking twist, you gotta read this one. Okay, next up is kind of a category. It is a whole romance category, and I just pretty much love any book with this trope in it. There are some exceptions, but if a romance book has this trope in it, I'm usually going to love it. There's something about it. I just think it's so cute. It gives me butterflies. I think it's like so heartwarming. I don't know why, but I absolutely love this trope, and it's a bit of a controversial trope. It is the accidental pregnancy trope, the unplanned pregnancy, anything like that. I love it. I know some people don't, but if you do, you are in the right place because I have a lot of recommendations for you. And I'm just gonna like give the name of the titles because I can't sit here and go through all of the stories because there's a bunch. But if you need recommendations for this category, here are some. I loved Lizzie Blake's Best Mistake, The Burns We Carry by Murray Good, Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young, Baby Moon or a Bust by Ava Hunter, The Rebound by Kendall Ryan, Fake Empire by C.W. Farnsworth, Chasing Her Fire by Claire Kingsley, Method for Matrimony by Anne Malcolm. I feel like those are a good place to start. There are definitely more that I can think of, and if you want a video on this or more information, let me know in the comments because I'm happy to talk about these books. They are some of my favorite. Okay, and last but not least, when someone asks me my favorite book, this book often comes to mind, but I don't know if it's my true favorite, but it is definitely my comfort read. Like, I have reread this book probably 3 or 4 times, and this book, it's a romance and it is originally told from the girl's perspective, but then the book was written from the boy's perspective. Literally the same story, the same events, just told from his perspective, and I've read that probably twice as well. And this is Bound by Honor, which is the first book in the Born in Blood Mafia Chronicles by Cora Riley. So probably like 3 or 4 years ago, I went through an extreme mafia romance phase, like extreme. I read all the books in this series, and there's a connected series, and I read all the books in that series, and then just any mafia romance book I could get my hands on, and I still love that type of book to this day, but I honestly feel like I've gone through all of the good ones. So again, let me know in the comments some of your favorites because I love this trope, and I actually haven't read a really good one in a while, and I would love to read another one. But anyway, Bound by Honor is one of my favorite books of all time. I've read it countless times, like I said. It is an arranged marriage romance book. It's a dark romance, a sexy romance. It's not too dark though. I would say it's probably considered dark because it's just like mafia and there's like things like murder that go on, but it's not like extremely dark. It's arranged marriage romance. I love arranged marriages. So it's like, it's got that forced proximity, it's got that tension, and it is between Luca and Arya, who are pretty much like the sons and daughters of elite crime families in different cities. I think Luca is from New York and Arya is from Chicago, and they are pretty much in an arranged marriage for like political mafia reasons. And it is just so good. If you love anything arranged marriage, forced proximity, like mafia, anything like that, like you will love these books. And even though I have read this book like multiple times, I actually haven't read it in a while, so maybe I need to do a reread of it soon, just so I can, you know, refresh my feelings and my thoughts on it. but this will always go down in history as one of my favorite books of all time. Okay, so that is it. Those are some of my favorite books of all time. I feel like I hit all the different genres I read, and I feel like now you have a full detailed look of what I love, what I enjoy as a reader. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know some of your favorite books in the comments below, like your top 5 stars, maybe your 6 stars, because I'm always looking for more amazing books to read. Again, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe for more book content, and I'll see you in the next one.